even with this music playing, all I can hear is the new potty training song that we've been playing.
That you've been playing.
Oh, I have to. It's the only way to make her go potty now. She was doing such a good job, and now she's totally averse to the potty, and we've had to be a little more creative.
Why is it called potty?
What do you mean?
What
like
is
instead of a toilet?
Is it because it looks like a pot?
I have no idea.
Like, why does it... Who came up with the term potty?
I don't know.
I guess you can't call it a toy instead of a toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason.
We'd get mixed signals.
Yeah.
Welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
And hey, last week, a lot of people were probably like, I don't want to have a baby anymore.
I don't think that's true. I think a lot of our parent friends could totally relate. And they felt like it was accurate.
Yeah. Someone, one of our friends, one of your friends, in more, not that I have a problem with this person at all. She's just your friend, posted on her Instagram stories that she felt like she was being seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We peer into your window and take notes, and then we record our episodes.
Well, we know, I mean, her kids go to the same daycare as ours, so we have seen some of the challenges that she's had and heard about it, and so we know that she can relate to a lot of the content we presented last week.
This episode not sponsored by Polar Seltzer Water, but it is delicious. So, yeah, we had a lot of good and positive feedback when it came to last week's episode. If you want to dig into the archives and you're curious as to the realities of having children and how your social life will just be flushed away. No, I'm kidding. Feel free to listen. But yeah, look, I don't like talking about numbers. I encourage you, Sydney, not to look at them. But
yeah, I never do.
I look at them all the time. And
you don't follow your own advice?
We are doing quite well as a new podcast.
That's great.
We are averaging quite a bit of listens a week. And as I have mentioned before, it seems like people are agreeing with this notion that it is advantageous to just be able to open up the catalog of While She's Napping episodes and just pick your poison. It's a fucking buffet of bullshit for everyone to just digest. And it's like a Chinese buffet, right? You think you're getting good quality stuff. You're not. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I feel like the way we've been picking the topics is just a lot like how we would just converse with each other.
And
it's
fight.
like whatever's on our, maybe
Minus
sometimes fight. Yeah. But it's just kind of whatever's going on or what's on our minds. And it's kind of just like what we would talk about at the dinner table.
That being said, if you are listening to this for the first time and you've stumbled upon this by some sort of social media route, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Reddit, we'd like to welcome you. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Today we're going to be talking about I guess wearing your mask or not wearing your mask and conspiracy theories in general. Mm-hmm. I know this was a hot button topic for you, and it is something that I think is a little pervasive around, especially the United States. I actually want to say only maybe North America. I don't see any.
Yeah, I would be really curious to hear from any of our international listeners on what the conversation is like where you are and if it's as contentious of an issue as it is here in the U.S.
Yeah, given the fact that my finger is kind of on the pulse when it comes to Canada for the other podcasts that I do about the Raptors and the Blue Jays, it is I don't want to say as big of an issue, but it does occur there.
Yeah.
It is there. So maybe this is a North American thing, or maybe a northern North American thing. I don't know about Mexico. I don't know how they're dealing with this.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you're listening for the first time and you like what you hear, we welcome you. And hey, subscribe. We're on all your favorite podcatchers. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on the YouTube. Still don't have any video of us talking, but I'm sure that will come. Maybe. I got a cool new webcam.
Nice.
$20 on Amazon.
That means I'll have to like get dressed and try to look halfway decent. That doesn't usually happen.
You're not naked.
No, I'm not. No, but I'm usually in pajamas
if
or yoga pants. If
anybody was wondering, we do the show in the nude, complete nude. Fuck it. Yeah, so if you like what you hear, please subscribe. And again, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please take the time, take 2 seconds out of your day, give us 5 stars and a quick review. A positive review would be great. If you want to leave a negative, just don't leave any negative review at all. It's kind of like what your mom told you when you were a kid. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. That is especially true in the podcasting realm. If you don't like it, just don't say shit and just walk away from it. No big deal. We don't even know. We don't know that you're walking away from it. Also, if you want to follow our socials and interact with us there, again, throughout the week, usually around the midpoint of the week, Cindy and I pick the discussion that we're going to talk about for the next episode, and we tend to either preview it and or ask for listener participation. So if you want to hit up our socials, go ahead, Cindy, take it over.
You can follow us. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/whileshe'snapping, which is usually where we put most of our polls. But we also put them on Instagram at While She's Napping, and we put the polls in the in our stories there, and then on Twitter at She's Napping Pod. And you can also email us whileshe'snapping@gmail.com. And I will say, just a quick follow up to what you were saying, Adam, that if you don't like us, don't put a bad review on iTunes or anything. But if you do have a differing opinion or a differing view or like anything like that, we don't want to discourage that conversation. So please reach out to us on any of our socials or send us an email, because we are genuinely open to hearing opposing views or, anything like that. So don't be shy.
Yeah. We're not combative people. I mean, I may come across as combative,
maybe with each other, but we
wouldn't be married if we weren't.
Right. Exactly.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the time we take the opportunity to thank those that have been listening. So shout out to people in the US, Canada, India, Nepal, United Kingdom, Brazil, and Spain, specifically within the US. Of course, Rhode Island. Shout out to Rhode Island. Hey guys, Rhode Island especially, we were one of the best states in the US to control this pandemic. I don't want to say we're slipping, but we're getting relaxed. Don't relax. Keep your shit up. Let's go. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, California, Florida, Arizona, New Hampshire, New York, Virginia, Connecticut, Washington, Louisiana, and of course, parts unknown, which I still have not figured out where you guys are at. Any input as to where I can find you, and maybe, once this pandemic ends, we can hang out. That'd be great. So, as I mentioned, today we are going to talk about mask wearing at first, I think, and then the nature of conspiracy theories in general. I'm going to let you drive the train on this one, so you tell me what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah. So we did, I guess we can kind of set the stage with the poll that we put up, which was just to try to get a general feel. I had an idea of which way this was going to go.
Sure.
But I just wanted to attempt to get a reading of what our listeners and friends, how they're approaching masks. One thing I do want to say up front is that I feel like there are probably people who didn't participate in the poll who, if they don't wear a mask, they may not have wanted to admit that, because I think a lot of people already know how we feel about it. And I hope that people would be comfortable in being honest and sharing their genuine reasons as to why they feel the way they do, because that's exactly what we want to talk about today. So the poll wasn't shocking to me. I was pleasantly not shocked by the fact that we had 95% of people indicate that they wear a mask.
On Facebook, this is 95%.
On Facebook, yes.
On Instagram, it was 100% said yes.
Yep.
By no means do I want to accuse those that did vote for the affirmative that they are lying. I think all of the people that voted yes mean it and actually do it. I have no reason to doubt that. However, as you mentioned, Instagram's a great thing in which you can see people that see your stories. I'm sure there are people that passed that and said, no, I'm not voting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird when you think about it. At that point, there ought to be some sense of introspection as to, well, why didn't you vote?
Right. That's what I was getting at, is if you don't wear your mask, I we're going to try to break down some of the reasons why that we've heard why people
hold on.
have that.
If you didn't want to vote because you didn't care, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine too. But if you do have strong feelings about this and you truly feel like you don't wear a mask or you don't want to wear a mask, or maybe you do it reluctantly, but we really did want to hear what your reasons were for that. So we're going to cover the ones that we've heard, but we didn't get any direct responses from non-mask wearers as to why.
Right. And when it comes to the affirmatives, we've got a handful of people that explained why. I'll read them all. Names will be omitted. One of them were masks on. We have evidence that it does affect transmission rates, and my brother is a nurse. I love him. Shout out to your brother. To protect others who are at high risk and protect my family and friends. Duh. Yeah.
I love that.
To protect those that are compromised immune systems, which totally makes sense. So I don't kill my immunocompromised family members. That's damn straightforward. I love it. Because I believe in science and listening to professionals. To keep others safe, and you look like a disrespectful asshole if you do not. And lastly, simplest thing I can do to help contain the spread of coronavirus. So all of them are pretty much on par with each other. So, I mean, I don't know what it is about this specific thing that makes people reluctant to do it. I don't know if it's because of, and again, we're going to break it down. I don't know if it's because of the inconvenience factor, but you look at a lot of other conspiracy theories out there, and I'm not saying they don't do it because they think it's a conspiracy theory.
Right.
You look at other conspiracy theories out there, and like, for instance, flat Earth or 5G or Loch Ness Monster or whatnot. Those don't deal with inconveniences.
Right.
They're just beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. And you can apply them to your daily life in some degree, but it doesn't necessarily affect how you dress, how you approach public spaces, or
right, your day to day.
Yeah.
For the most part. Yeah.
With this, I think there's so much pushback, especially in America, in the United States, I should say, because it's a minor inconvenience in terms of having something quote unquote intrusive to put on your body, and the whole freedom aspect. So I think that is the biggest reason why there's so much pushback.
Yeah. So that, I think there are some threads, like you said, a lot of people, I don't think the reason that they don't want to wear a mask is because they think it's a conspiracy. But I do think that is one, there is probably a small minority of people who think that. So I think we'll touch on that last, and then we can kind of, talk about how that does and doesn't relate to other conspiracies, like a few that you've mentioned, and some others that our listeners submitted to us that they thought were particularly fascinating. So why don't we just go ahead and start with some of the other reasons why that we've heard that people.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of them that I've heard that okay. So there have been claims, and I don't even know where it started. I tried to just do a quick Google search and try to figure out where this myth began. But the whole idea that it's dangerous for the wearer to wear a mask because you breathe in your own carbon dioxide. Well, some people say carbon monoxide, some people say carbon dioxide, CO2. I don't think they know the difference. I don't think they know which one is which. They just think you're breathing in some sort of dangerous gas by wearing a mask. So the best response that I've seen to that is, why don't we have more dead surgeons?
Yes. Yes.
Medical professionals have been wearing masks forever, and they wear it for hours. Like a neurosurgeon wears a mask for like 10, 12 hours, whatever. And they can focus enough. They're not being affected by breathing in carbon dioxide. They can focus enough to operate on your brain for 10 hours wearing a mask. You can go to Target for 10 minutes wearing a mask and survive. Like,
speaking of Target, did you see that? I told you about this before. They have kiosks with masks with a mirror.
It's so bad.
I just need to see what I look like in this mask. Oh, I don't like it. I'm putting it back.
Yeah, it's totally sanitary.
Yeah. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if someone had like a UV light.
Oh my
after
God,
each
I know.
Try on.
Did you get any? I remember when you first told me that, I asked, did someone say something and did they take it down?
It became a meme.
Okay.
I don't know if they took them down.
I wonder if Target still has those mirrors up. That's so bad.
That's so dumb.
I
This
know.
isn't a sunglasses kiosk. Anyways, that's the point. You don't see the eulogy of millions of surgeons. We lost another one to these damn N95 masks. I don't. Shit. Anybody else want to be a surgeon? It's not like you're. And again, no disrespect to anybody that has an occupation that is very dangerous. I'm talking about if you're a soldier or if you're a policeman or a fireman. You walk into those jobs knowing, okay, there's a decent chance I could lose my life as a result of this. No one signs up as a brain surgeon and says, oh, fuck.
Gotta wear a mask all day.
The risk is pretty big wearing this mask, but I get to save people. It doesn't even enter the fucking equation. And this is the problem. When people think of these conspiracy theories or these reasons, all they need to do is hear it once. They need to hear one, not even accurate, just one excuse that sounds believable, and they'll hold on to it. No matter how much is disproven, no matter how much, if you reflect on it just for 5 seconds and understand, no, that doesn't make sense. They don't want to do that. They might not even believe it. They just want an excuse not to do it because it disrupts their lives just ever so slightly, and a disruption in your life means something is wrong.
Or they have a deeper reason, which maybe it's one of the other ones we're going to get into, or sort of the conspiracy or freedom thing, but this is an excuse that they can use to justify. In
fairness, though, I don't even know if this is accurate, but from my understanding, medically, there are people that it would be harmful. It's a very small pocket of people.
Right, like well, they even say kids under 2. I mean, putting anything on a child that young can be dangerous and can be a suffocation. Same reason why you don't have babies sleep with blankets until a certain age and stuff like that. I mean, you don't want anything around a child's face because they can't move it, or it
people
become a
with
hazard.
Legitimate health conditions that are based on breathing problems. Like I don't know if this is something that's pervasive, it's high spread or whatever. I don't think it is, but maybe people with like emphysema or something.
Yeah, that's actually the next thing on my list. That's another reason why people give that they can't or don't want to or just don't wear a mask is because of underlying health conditions. And you're right, and I think the CDC and other medical professionals have said there are some instances where wearing a mask could be detrimental if you have some of these underlying conditions. But my initial thought when I hear that is, okay, if you have an underlying condition that makes it difficult for you to breathe, and wearing a cloth mask, even for a short amount of time when you're in a store, is going to be so detrimental to your health, then why are you out in the middle of a pandemic, like browsing the aisles at Walmart?
Maybe they don't have. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Absolutely. I'm going to get to that. But I'm saying in general, if I'm more talking about like, these are very few and far between, but you see the viral Karen videos of women who are like, and they're just using it as an excuse. It's not even, I'm saying that's a legitimate thing where you have a health condition that's so severe that you can't wear a surgical mask or a cloth mask for a short amount of time while you're running your essential errands. Like, you shouldn't be out browsing. Like, you should be doing your essential things. And if your condition is so severe that you can't do that, then you're doing yourself I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by exposing yourself to this respiratory disease that could be fatal due to your underlying condition.
Right.
And you should be doing everything you can to utilize the services that are available, like the at-home delivery services, grocery services, having someone do your shopping for you. I know there are even stores who offer to shop for people like that, so you don't have to go in the store without your mask on. Like, there are things you can do.
So I'm hard pressed to, I don't want to say dissuade you from that, because I do agree with you, and maybe this is me being a typical millennial, but usually I am not sympathetic to older generations not being able to figure out technology. I'm just not. I think they've made it so simple, and it's, again, I don't want to get too deep in the woods, but most of these people that are immunocompromised, especially if we're going to use emphysema as an example, they're usually of the older ilk, and they may not know that these technologies even exist, and moreover, they may not even know how to use them if they do, and they may not have people available to them readily that can teach them how to use it. So I'm not saying that these aren't valid.
Fair. Yeah, no, and I'm not saying I don't have sympathy for people who are genuinely in this position where they have to put themselves at risk to go out and run their essential errands. Like, that's awful. And I wish that they had an alternative, and I'm sure they do too. But I get, like, I saw someone at the supermarket once who, it was an older woman. She was in not a wheelchair. What do you call, like a scooter or whatever it is that they have at the
motorized scooter.
Yes, and she had like an oxygen tank, and she was hooked up to her oxygen. Obviously, she's not wearing a mask. And I just felt terrible that this person with this in this condition doesn't have anyone who can shop for them. But in that case, so then I'm like, it's similar. I don't want to go down the vaccine or anti-vax road too far, but to me, that is a similar concept then to the reason why we all get healthy people get vaccinated is to protect those who are immunocompromised or who have another condition or for whatever reason can't get vaccinated.
Right.
The more people in the community who do that protect those people. And I feel like the mask wearing is the same. Like that woman in the supermarket who can't wear a mask, who's on an oxygen tank and has to be in the supermarket to get her groceries. That person, I would guess, is grateful to see the majority of the rest of the healthy public wearing a mask to protect her. Like that's the whole idea, is that if the people who can wear their masks do, it protects the people who legitimately can't.
Yeah, it's part of being an altruistic society, right? And usually when you think of altruism, you think of a sacrifice for someone that would benefit more than you. So the classic example that is used, especially in philosophy courses, this is how I learned it, is you're hungry, you have a lunch, but you see someone starving that needs food, so you offer your food to that person that's starving. Yes, you're hungry as a result, but you're not starving. You're not, worse off in the long term. So that's part of being altruistic. You're looking out for other people that are worse off than you in order to maximize the positivity of your surroundings. It's the same thing when it comes to mask wearing. And it's not even on the same level. You're putting a mask on, cloth or industrial or otherwise, to protect those around you that are immunocompromised, that would have otherwise been exposed to it and could die as a result. And that is what's part of being an altruistic society. It is a very, very small inconvenience. And I'm hard pressed to even call it an inconvenience because I guess they're making it sort of fashionable now. So it's kind of cool to wear a mask, I guess, in terms of what
you
your
can
style
personalize
is,
it or whatever,
the designs on it and whatnot. But for me, it's the least you could possibly do. It's very similar to just using your blinker. You're not using your blinker for you. You're using the blinker for the person behind you. You don't have to do it, but if you do, it makes the person behind you and sort of yourself too better off to say, hey, I'm taking this turn. Please be prepared to stop or slow down.
It's being considerate to keep other people safe. It's part of like living in a civilized society.
Yeah, altruistic society. I think that's built into things. I think the biggest, and I don't know if you're going to get to this, I think the biggest misconception about mask wearing is that people think that if you wear a mask, it protects you from getting it.
Right.
That's incorrect. It helps limit the spread if you have it and don't know it. And I feel that people, when they hear these terms, when they hear limit the spread, they think, it's not completely ineffective, so why do it? That's such faulty reasoning. It's the most you can possibly do in order to limit the spread. Even if it's a 10% limitation, it's better than zero.
Right.
So what's the problem? And I think that's the disconnect here. People think, okay, so it doesn't prevent me from getting it, the person that I care about the most, looking out for number one, then fuck it, I'm not gonna, no, it doesn't make sense. And I think that is the problem here. Yeah,
and I think it's the argument about whether or not masks work. I think that's the first point is you have to make sure that the person, like whoever you're talking to, is on the same page. That are you talking about it works to protect me or it works to protect others? There is even some evidence that it does protect the wearer to some extent, but there's it just reduces the points of entry for the virus to come in contact with your respiratory system. So, but it's definitely not that's not the reason you're wearing it. the reason is to protect other people. And I think the evidence that it does, to some extent, that it helps, even if it's not perfect, is there. Like, I don't know what people mean when they say, oh, it doesn't even work. Like, the medical professionals and even the CDC says it doesn't work. It's like, no, they do. That's why they're recommending it.
So that is the problem. There was a point in time where Fauci said, you don't have to wear a mask. And
yes, this was early. This was in like March or April.
The CDC, I don't want to say backed it up, but they did not push back on that statement.
Right. They straight out said they did not recommend the general public to wear masks at that time.
Yes, it's because they didn't have enough N95s at the time, so they didn't want a surge of people purchasing N95s or purchasing other masks, so they wouldn't be available to those in the healthcare industry. That was, again, I can see the reasoning behind it. I don't necessarily get offended or get worked up about it, but I'm calling a spade here. It's a lie.
But no, there was more to it than that. Yes, that was part of it. But I do think that at that point in time, there weren't enough cases. The spread wasn't as evident. No. It is.
So it came out later that this information was purposely withheld from us. They knew the effective nature of wearing masks.
But then why didn't they just recommend cloth masks?
Because people wouldn't have listened to that.
Okay, so they
purposely withheld information so the masks can go to the people that need them the most, being people in the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
And then when they realize, okay, we have enough, people in those industries have enough, or we can make it work, now we tell the general public. This has been
okay. I mean, but I still feel like that was the right decision at the time. Like,
that's not the debate. The debate here is that people now will latch on to that.
Well, they said we didn't have to wear them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the context matters. How many times do I say context on this podcast? But yes, that is the whole story and the whole timeline and all of the circumstances surrounding those decisions. You can't ignore those things and say 4 months later, oh, well, 4 months ago, they told me I didn't have to wear a mask. It doesn't even work.
No, I think they'll either say that or they'll say 4 months ago, you lied to me. How do I know you're not lying to me now?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I think more often the sentiment I hear is they don't even know what they're talking about. They can't even make up their mind. They're changing things all the time. Of course they're changing things all the time. It's part of science. This is a new virus. Yeah.
This is I think it's more of a vendetta, right? It's my government lied to me, or Fauci lied to me, therefore I'm not wearing a mask.
Yeah, or they just don't trust. They don't trust it anymore.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's really doing a disservice to our medical professionals, scientists. I mean, they're doing the best they can. Like, what, I mean.
So I don't know if this falls into the next category of freedom, but it is worth noting that there is a huge mistrust now, and we touched on this in the pandemic episode, and there's some sort of cross-pollination between what we're talking about now and the pandemic episode. So if you're interested in this topic, I encourage you to, after we're done with this episode, go back in the archives, listen to the pandemic episode. We touch on more. But there is cross-pollination between people that aren't wearing masks and the distrust of scientific, I don't want to say fact, but facts, sound reasoning and research, because there's just, I don't know if it's because they don't understand the rhetoric. I don't know if they don't understand how to read scientific data and journals. And again, that's nothing to do with, intelligence. I have a difficult time, and I'm the stupidest person I know. I have a difficult time reading this type of, rhetoric as well.
I'm a scientist by my profession. I'm a biologist, and I have trouble reading some of the, especially the medical journals and everything. It is
obtuse language, and I don't know if that has to do with it, but it seems that professionals in their field are being doubted because I think, again, it doesn't fit into the narrative of this is disrupting my life, therefore I don't want to do it. There is no evidence that you could possibly give these people to make them realize, oh, I should wear a mask.
Yeah, and I found a couple of just anecdotal things. Like, even if you don't believe the big picture, or you have too much doubt in the changes in the recommendations that have happened since this started, there are certain instances where it's documented. Like there was, I saw in a Canadian medical journal about a man who was on an international flight, either to or from Toronto, and he tested positive for COVID shortly after he landed at his destination. And he had been coughing on the plane, and he was symptomatic too. And he was on a plane with it was a small flight, like 25 other people, but he wore a mask the entire time. And so did everyone else on the plane. And none of those other people became infected.
And they'll say that means Corona's a hoax. No, I'm serious. That is the
so
response.
And are you going to say that to the people whose family members have died from it?
They'll say they didn't. All right. And that's a whole nother can of worms. People, apparently this narrative has gained a lot of steam of, the more people you diagnose with coronavirus, the richer that doctor will be. It's completely false, sort of. So I shouldn't say completely false. If you diagnose and treat someone with corona, Medicare gives you a kickback because of the treatment policies. No, the treatment procedures, okay. Right? And that's just with anything that you do in the hospital. If you're treating someone for anything, Medicare or whatever the healthcare that you have is going to end up paying the doctors something
to support that treatment.
Yes, that's how it works. People then grasp onto this notion of, if you died of COVID, that doctor makes more money. It's not true. It is not true at all. You can find me where that's true because I dug deep. It does not exist. If people are declared dead as a result of COVID, there is not a doctor in the world that makes more money as a result. And I think people grasped onto this because they said, this person had a heart condition and they died of a heart attack and they're blaming it on COVID. And I'm like, no, that's not. COVID sort of exacerbated this this
you can't say that they would have died if they hadn't had COVID.
Right. And so they think they make more money as a result. That's why it's people that are questioning the legitimacy of COVID and mask wearing or whatever. It's because they hear these things and it amplifies to an outrageous and absurd degree.
Right. I know we touched on that in Plandemic episode 2 about I take particular issue with that whole concept of thinking that there's profit being made off of COVID. And that's kind of what started the whole hoax theory and everything. And it's like, there is so much corruption within our healthcare system already.
Right.
And people being, put in debt for healthcare issues or being in medical debt, that just drives me nuts that this is what's being latched onto.
Right.
And people are getting upset about this.
Well, and also the response I want to give to people when it comes to, mask wearing doesn't work. Like I said earlier, there's no legitimate evidence or data that you can give to people that will make them want to believe it. And if I say, all right, well, look at the cities or the states or whatever, the territories.
Countries even.
That are mandating mask wearing. And look at the rate of spread and the COVID numbers. You'll notice they aren't high. But you have these other states that don't have these mandates, looking at you, Florida, and the cases are skyrocketing in the 10,000 plus. Why do you think that is?
Right.
And they'll say, it's there's so many more people in that area.
It's because the U.S. is doing more testing.
Yeah.
If you stop testing, coronavirus will go away.
Well, no, it's not just that. That is an excuse, obviously, and it's stupid. But I think people will say, they're just trying to do that in these states because that's where Trump is popular, so they want to scare people.
Yeah, they're making
and this
it
is
totally
an election
political
tactic.
Yeah.
I
want to say one thing about that because I get really concerned when there's the causation correlation confusion sometimes. So correlation does not always equal causation. So we can't 100% say that the places that have high caseloads right now is directly related to the mask mandates. However, when it's repeated time and time again, and you can see this pattern on multiple scales and between multiple comparisons, like you can do it country to country, town, state to state, whatever, there's pretty good evidence that the masks are a significant variable in that equation. That's all.
We've gone about 30 minutes without bringing politics into this, and I know I just sort of skated that line with, the Trump and the election thing, but we should talk about freedom before we take our break. And I think that is the biggest detriment. And look, freedom in America is a double-edged sword, right? It's great that we have it, and it's great that, you and I, something as, ultimately as pointless as this podcast when it comes to having the ability to talk about these things openly and freely without fear of repercussion, right? There is no government big brother that's going to shut us down because you and I are talking about the benefits of wearing masks. Or even if we were, part of the camp that believes this is a conspiracy, we can make a podcast about that too. It's freedom it's a good thing in theory, but also when we're talking about, having to wear a mask and then people are saying this goes against my freedom. Sorry, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't, because especially when you go into private businesses, right? Before the pandemic, if I went into Target or I went into Walmart or any store and they have a policy that states no shirt, no service, I have never once heard anybody ever on either side of the aisle say, this goes against my freedom. You guys are dictating what I can wear and cannot wear. This is against freedom of speech. This is against American, truths and American policies. What never happened. And that is the thing. Private entities can make their own rules as to what they want and what they do not want. So if a private business says you must wear a mask, that is not illegal and that is not against your freedoms. You are bound to do that if you want to step foot in that store, just like no shirt, no service.
Right. And people say, well, it's not a law that I have to wear a mask, so there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, they can kick you out of their store. You can't be arrested because you're not breaking the law by not wearing a mask, but you can be refused service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and a police could thus escort you out. You would, unless you start causing a scene, then it's,
right.
I think,
but
I don't know what it is
the act of not wearing a mask itself is not a criminal offense. There's nothing illegal about it. So yes, when someone says it's not the law, you're right, it's not the law, but a business has the right to refuse you service as long as they're not being discriminatory. They can refuse you service if you're not going to follow their policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
pretty straightforward.
If there was, I can only relate it to the extreme examples, right? So if there was a black-owned business, right, and someone came in with a Nazi shirt, that owner could say, get the fuck out of my store.
Right.
And that is, they're not doing anything wrong. First of all, they're doing something great at that point by kicking their ass out of the store. But at that point, that's not illegal. Those policies are not illegal.
Right.
Right. And again, bringing it back to the no shirt, no service, never once did it seems like that was so obvious.
Right.
Too.
And it's because a lot of those policies too, they go back to, so I feel like there's different reasons, like no shoes, no shirt, no service. Exactly. It's a public health concern, which is exactly the same fucking thing as wearing your mask. It's to protect the public. They're not worried about you coming in barefoot to a store for your own health. They're worried about you being sanitary and not risking the health of all the other people using that store. It's exactly the same thing with a mask.
Listen, I hate Planet Fitness. To me, Planet Fitness is not a gym. It's not. And I know this is sort of a side, but it's not a gym. It's Mick Gym. Okay. It's not a gym. Planet Fitness has a policy. You cannot wear a bandana. You cannot wear, I don't know, some sort of tank top. I don't know, string tank top or whatever, spaghetti strap. Is that what it's called? You cannot wear short shorts. You cannot wear, men cannot wear muscle shirts in there. I'm sure there are Planet Fitnesses out there that are very liberal when it comes to these rules, but there's some are very hardcore about it. You're not allowed to grunt. If you do, there's a lunk alarm. If you do it X amount of times, you get your ass kicked out, right? I don't like it. I don't go.
Right. But
that's their policy.
Right. And what I think is funny is that those are just like, fancier high-end restaurants that have dress codes. Those are just to maintain the atmosphere of the establishment. It's not even a public health thing. But people don't complain about it. Exactly. And no one complains about it.
No one bats an eye. That's what I'm saying. If you went to a 5-star restaurant,
like, it's my right to wear jeans,
a tank top,
and a baseball cap,
and swim shorts, and tried to go in there and try to put up a statement, it is my American right to wear whatever I want. They could say, it is, just not here.
Right. And that's not even a public health thing.
No.
so
I'm
backwards.
trying to progress past the public health
No, I
thing
know. I'm
because
saying it's even
no one bats an eye.
Exactly, and it's even like more superficial. It's you know what I mean? It's not even related to public health, and yet they're still allowed to do it, and people still don't complain.
Right. So if you're thinking that this is a hoax or this is against your freedoms and liberty, it's not. It's just not. And look, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If this is a hoax, right? If it is a hoax that you have to wear a mask, I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about mask wearing. Who benefits? Really, who benefits?
This is where we're getting to conspiracy.
Well, I'm saying just mask wearing.
Yeah.
Who benefits?
The conspiracy theorists would say the government. It's a form of government control.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll take a break there and we'll come back with more conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So we mentioned the supermarket. Why the fuck is it called the supermarket?
I don't know, because it has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but it just has food.
Well, no, supermarket, no. Stop and Shop, and I mean they have
people
like
don't know what Stop and Shop.
Oh, I know. There's Rhode Island for you. Yeah, they have most supermarkets have household items, and
I feel like it's just an interchangeable term with grocery store.
Yeah, I think it is.
But a grocery store is whatever. It doesn't matter.
Anyway.
Conspiracy. All right,
yeah.
So let's talk about it. So the reason why people think mask wearing is a conspiracy is for government mind control or government, like we're sheep?
Yes, that's one. So again, unfortunately, we didn't get any responses to our polls of people that we know personally who have these stances. So I say that unfortunately.
That refuse to
wear a mask. It's kind of fortunate that it's not like really, prevalent in our listenership or group of friends. But anyway, the things I've seen online, it's a lot of people calling each other sheep and saying like you're doing it and you don't even know why you're doing it, which isn't true. We know, obviously, by the listener responses we got, there are a lot of people who have very good reasons as to why they wear a mask, and they're a lot better than the reasons as to why people don't.
Right.
But yeah, I've heard that whole, it's just the government, and this is where you get into probably some overlap with people who believe in like 5G and like it's government, it's about government control, government, even when
pandemic.
Yeah. And in Rhode Island, we have our government came out with an app to help track COVID cases and
contact tracing
and do contact tracing more efficiently. And I know a lot of people in our, like I'm in our local town's Facebook group and stuff like that. People saying, no way, I'm not downloading that. I don't need you to track my location. I don't need my government knowing where I am. I'm like, okay, as you post that from your Facebook account on your smartphone, which I bet has your location enabled.
Well, Facebook has been pretty well documented to steal people's data, and you
see ads when you just think of something.
Yeah,
like
or
that's a big joke. But like,
yeah,
you probably have an Alexa or an Echo or something in your house. You have this background location data on your phone all the time. You probably check in when you go places. But you don't want the government knowing where you are for the purposes of a public health contact tracing effort.
I feel that is so superficial because, look, I'm willing to concede that there is some sort of tracking. There is some sort of, I don't want to say surveillance, but maybe there is. I don't care. Like, I just don't care if people are listening to me or reading my text messages or what. I have nothing to hide. And
I know.
I am not. I am just so shameless that if you want to watch whatever I'm watching on the internet, or if like anybody that's looking at porn, I guess you and me, government, we're gonna watch this porn together. Let's go. Whatever. Like, I have nothing to hide.
Right.
Nothing.
I know, but I think that a lot of people who think this, I don't think that's the reason. I think it's more in principle of they feel like it's an infringement of their rights and their privacy.
But I just don't care.
No, I know you don't. But I get it. I understand why people value their privacy.
Sure.
And they don't want to feel like they're constantly being watched or monitored, and
Okay,
they want
then
to
don't
have
go
a
on the
genuine sense of
internet.
freedom. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you do so many other things on an everyday basis that do not align with your resistance to a government wanting to contact trace you for the purposes of, reining in a pandemic. Like, even the most simple thing, like we have now with dining open, that you have to give your information to go sit in the restaurant, so that if there is a positive case, you can be contacted,
right,
so that to notify you that you could have it. So that then you can protect your family and your loved ones and take precautions and get tested. That is, and if you don't want to wear a mask and you want this to be over, that is another easy thing you can do, is to participate in contact tracing efforts.
See, this is the thing, and it's much like if the government is watching me. If this is a conspiracy, again, I'm willing to just entertain the benefit of the doubt that mask wearing is a conspiracy for some sort of mind control. Okay, I fell victim to it. Oh, I wore a mask.
Right, what did you lose?
I have done nothing else different in my entire life. Yep. And I understand the argument then is, well, it's a slippery slope. It starts with masks and you can get deeper and deeper. I don't think so. I don't think you can say, you can go that far off the deep end and say, well, they made you wear a mask. Next they're gonna make you kill your firstborn. No, it's not gonna get that far. Or, they're gonna make you take this potion, or they're gonna make you take this vaccine.
That has a chip in it or something.
This is a way to get you to take the coronavirus vaccine. I am willing to admit right now, when the coronavirus vaccine comes out, I'm going to hold off. I'm not going to not take it. I'm just going to hold off because I feel this is kind of rushed in comparison to other vaccines.
I don't want you to blast that idea, because there's a lot of misinformation behind that too, that it is being fast tracked, obviously, because it needs to be.
Of course.
But there's a lot of, if you look at, and I'm not an expert in this at all, but if you look at the general, timeline of how vaccines are developed, we've got a huge head start on this because of SARS and similar.
Listen, I'm not denying that this will be effective. I'm just saying.
And safe, though. I'm saying, like, people are nervous that it might not be safe because it's being rushed. And I completely understand. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't have that thought in the back of my mind, too. But at the same time, if you look at the actual science behind how they're developing the vaccine, even though it's being fast tracked, there's ways that they're not skipping steps. They're just finding ways to do it, to like run trials, at the same time, like parallel to one another, when normally that would be a linear process and stuff like that.
Again, so, I'm not saying I will never take it.
I know,
I think that's
what
separates me from. It's not a conspiracy. I just have personal concerns.
I get it. But I'm saying I think we should make sure that concern is legitimate before we make the decision not to get the vaccine right away. Because if enough people have that same concern, which again, I understand why you would on the surface, then there's going to be a huge delay in getting the population vaccinated.
I see more people anxious to get it to get back to normality. It's not like the flu vaccine where I don't question it. I'm just going to take it, right? And I think once COVID vaccine gets to that point, I'll have no qualms of taking it. It's just one of those things where I'm just a little apprehensive. It's not a conspiracy.
I get it.
But again, when it comes to conspiracies, just like mask wearing or anything else, and we have a few that we're going to touch on, my initial thought is, okay, who benefits from this? That's, again, about the mask wearing. If your conspiracy, the government mind control, whatever, fine. It's a form of fine. Whatever. But other conspiracies that we're going to touch on now, who benefits? I want to start with flat Earth. That's a big one. You see these people that believe the Earth is flat, and that's it for me. Why? If people are thinking the Earth is flat, I see no harm in that, really. It doesn't really disrupt your life or the way you live. You just think the Earth is of a different sort of shape or of a different, makeup. Fine.
Yeah, but I think the interesting thing is, and I don't know enough about it, but why do they think we've been told something else all this time? And is that connected to this whole idea of being brainwashed or something? I think that there's probably something there of, they think there's a reason or a motivation as to why we've been told the Earth is round, when in their minds they believe it's flat.
It would take such a large network of people to be in on this, without letting, the real data, or real in quotes, the flat earth data, if it exists,
Right.
keeping that under wraps. That would take an enormous amount of effort that just automatically discredits it for me. And again, this is why I think, going back to the mask wearing, it's a very North American thing, because if it's not, there has to be an entire globe, literally the entire fucking globe, every leader of these nations all have to be in on it.
That's what I said during the pandemic episode.
That is so outrageous, because these people, you have to consider the fact that people that are in war are in on this together. They're saying, hey, I know we're fighting for oil and stuff, but I got something we can talk about when it comes to mask
we got to we got to get on the same page here about this pandemic.
Oh no, totally, America and Iraq. No, we're in. Count us in. Russia, we're in. Let's go. This is going to be fun. It's not like a group of people that are trying to play a prank on a smaller group of people. You can keep that network tight. When it comes to like flat earth, coronavirus, this network is so large that it would become unhinged. The threads would loosen.
Yeah. Who's the puppet master there? Like, who's the person?
Oh, it has to be China.
No. Yep.
Has to be China.
Yeah, we got some other ideas for conspiracy theories that are interesting. We have one friend in particular who's awesome. She's like super into true crime and all this stuff, and man, she goes down some rabbit holes, I think, because there's some things she mentioned that neither of us have heard of, but we're going to look into it. They sound really interesting. But there was one that came through of Holocaust deniers.
Yes.
Which is gross.
I think it's because, again, I'm not defending it. I'm just trying to, as best as I can, rationalize the thinking. It's at such an enormous scale, and the practice during that time was so horrendous that it's, even just thinking about it is kind of inconceivable, right? Thinking of the degree of torture and the effort that had to be put in place to isolate a specific group of people from in the millions into certain pockets of Europe. It's I don't want to give it any positive. It's crazy to just think about. It's
the reality is hard to wrap your head around in the first place.
Wow, that is crazy how detailed and oriented that had to be. That
it was able to implement their ridiculous ideology and be able to do something on that scale.
On that much of a scale. I think that is why those that deny it are inclined to do so, because the reality of that, although true, it's hard to comprehend that so many people would be,
and that's one thing
for them, not for me.
Right. And I think that's one of the other reasons I saw was that it's sometimes it's not, they don't deny that it happened altogether, but they say that the numbers were exaggerated or the scale wasn't as, but I still don't really understand, like, what's the motivation behind that? Like, why would you deny or question this, like, integral, like, really infamous piece of history that's like...
I think so a lot of these people, from my understanding, are anti-Semites. Is that how you say it? Anti-Semitic? Mm-hmm. So for them, it may be a way to sympathize with a group of people that is not necessarily, in their view, not marginalized. Yeah. Right. And that's disgusting. It's definitely a form of discrimination, and it's not.
That's the only thing I could think of. It has to be rooted in a racist ideology. That's the only reason I could think of as to why you would deny that this happened. You don't want
to sympathize with people you find other.
Yeah.
In their view.
Or it's almost like, it wasn't that big of a deal, or it didn't really have. They're minimizing it. They're minimizing the history of what Jewish people have experienced or gone through. Yeah, that makes sense. It's the only motivation that I could think of too.
So it rather than examine the facts and the raw data
and acknowledge the awfulness that they face.
Yeah, and again, that is something that you can't skew. It would take a large effort on a global scale for everyone to say, okay, we all agree, tens of millions, we all agree on that, even though it's a lie.
Let's get our story straight.
We're good. Let's go.
I know, it's crazy.
Come on.
I know.
And this is after, like, I'm sure after World War II, although I wasn't alive, I'm sure Germany wasn't on the best of terms with people. And if Germany was like, hey, could we just settle for a couple 10 million? Is that cool?
There was like negotiations.
Yeah, no. There is effort to say, no, the truth is coming out.
Yeah.
To deny it is just asinine.
Yep.
Another one, I didn't tell you about this on purpose because I wanted to save it. QAnon.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with QAnon?
Sort of.
So it is a network largely, or if not exclusively, Trump supporters. And this figurehead Q on message board, probably 4chan, if I were to imagine, has the inside scoop on the deep state and how to disrupt the deep state, and he sends clues and stuff to people on the message board, and you know they really look for it, and they're called QAnons, people that buy into this,
and they look for that, and
they
follow
for
it and look
right?
for it. Okay,
it's kind of like the theory: if you become obsessed with the number 7, you'll see 7 everywhere.
Right.
Or when you said to me like, "Oh, you really want that Subaru Crosstrek?"
You're like, "Oh, this is a really popular car. I see them all the time."
No, because I'm looking for
right.
it. You see it everywhere. So that is another psychological aspect of things like this, is if you want to see it, you'll find it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
In the most obscure things, you'll make sense of it. It's like looking at clouds. You want to see a shape in the cloud.
It's part of our psychology.
Yes, you'll find it. There are other things too, but let's not get down that rabbit hole. Anyways, I was walking into the supermarket, Stop and Shop nonetheless. Stop and Shop is the East Coast Giant. I don't know where Giant's at, but it's not on the East Coast. Anyways, I saw a van drive by, and with little individual letters on the back of it, QAnon is real. They have the "Don't Tread on Me" sticker and whatnot. They're all Trump supporters. This is the larger issue I find with people that buy into the conspiracy theories. And I'm very hesitant to say this. I said this to you before, but I'm going to anyway. If I don't say it, I'm thinking it. So you ever notice that people that really, really buy into conspiracy theories, I'm talking about the ones that are full blown into it, typically are uneducated. I
mean, it makes sense because, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean they're unintelligent. It means they're uneducated in the sense that we were talking earlier about how it can be really difficult to look through some of these, scientific journals and identify legitimate sources versus non-legitimate sources, especially in the huge rabbit hole that is the internet,
right,
where anyone can post anything and make it look legitimate. You have to make an intentional effort to learn how to recognize those things, to educate yourself on what legitimate information is, and figure out what the red flags are as to when something like that doesn't sound right or that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree, and I don't think that's not an insult to people. That's saying if you haven't.
I'm not questioning people's intelligence.
Right, so I want to make sure you make that distinction.
I'm questioning their research skills.
Yes, yeah, it is a skill.
Yes, and I tweeted this out and sort of tongue in cheek, but I kind of mean it. I said, man, it's really hard who to trust these days. You got, on the one hand, you got these medical experts that have been practicing medicine their entire lives, that have their, medical degree in these sort of sciences. But then you got these guys on Facebook that barely finished high school telling me it's a hoax. Really hard who to trust.
I know. I've seen that meme too.
Come on. I mean, let's be honest here. You have no basis to believe this. If you believe in these conspiracy theories, your evidence are biased sources that are affirming your bias, right? You're not looking for the adverse. You're not looking for the opposite thing. You're not looking for the contrary. You're looking for things to
bias.
reinforce.
That's what it's called.
I know.
Yeah, no, there's a term for that. It's confirmation bias. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I always wonder that makes me scratch my head is when people who believe in conspiracy theories, they don't think twice about what the motivation is behind the people promoting the conspiracies. Like, for example, in Plandemic, that person who is the main focus of that whole thing had just come out with a book.
Yeah.
It's like, don't you think that just maybe there's a financial motivation that she's trying to gain popularity to increase her book sales or her own image? Like, I feel like Alex Jones is the same way. Like, he's profiting off of being extreme and being, I mean, he probably is legitimately crazy, but you know, like there's
right.
like, how do they not think about what the motivation is behind the people promoting the conspiracies if that is kind of like the lens that they look at every issue from?
I mentioned this on the Plandemic episode too. It's like, man, I don't trust CNN. I don't trust Fox. I don't trust MSNBC. All of them they're just trying to control me, man. They're trying to feed me misinformation. All right, where do you get this information? Oh, you go to YouTube and check out
Facebook.
this video. Yeah, I mean, seriously, let's call it for what it is. These aren't sources. Anybody can make. I remember when I was growing up and I was in college, I was saying, "Ooh, you ever see the Loose Change documentary? That shit will fucking change your life." Yeah. I look back on it like, no, it's so bad, but it influences that curiosity that you have. And because I didn't know how to research things at the time, I still kind of don't, I'm still learning about that, and you sharpen those skills.
You have to keep learning because it keeps changing.
Right. It's just, you're able to see things a little bit more clear. And that's the difference between this woke mentality and just knowing or rather having a feel for bullshit, right? People that are woke definitely want you to know they're woke, and people that are sort of inclined to trust science and stuff, they don't brag about it. They're not saying I trust science every day. It is as a response to these resistance and as a response to this quote unquote woke culture that they're saying, yeah, but science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and it takes that whole thing, like you were saying, Loose Change is an example. The way that the information is put together and presented is done in such a way, and same thing with Plandemic. It's intentionally taking advantage of the vulnerabilities of our psychology.
Yes.
Like it's putting pieces together that when you put it all together and you look at it like in this vacuum and you take away all the other variables that might make it make more sense in reality,
that were purposely omitted, by
right,
the way.
Exactly. It cherry picks things in order to draw you to this conclusion that when you're focused on that, it makes sense. Like it's natural to follow where they're leading you because of the information that's being presented and in the way that it's being presented. So I think that's the kind of the phenomenon behind conspiracy theories and why people fall into them and why it's hard to get out of it. But I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to get out of it. Like you said, now you look back on the fact that you thought Loose Change was like a mind-blowing thing and you can understand why. There's ample ways to...
It's because I was young and impressionable.
Right. But like, and there's no harm or there's no shame in admitting that now and that you've grown and you've learned more. And
listen,
I don't
now
know why...
I'm just old and stupid. That's all.
I don't know why people are so afraid to go back. And I feel like I've seen that a lot too, is during this whole pandemic, is it is okay to change your opinion. And a lot of times with the racial inequality stuff that we've been seeing so much of now, is it's okay to realize something you used to say or something you used to think, maybe you didn't have all the information or you weren't looking at it from all the perspectives. And maybe there's a different way to look at it, a different way to think about it. And it's not just okay, it's beneficial to admit that and grow and move forward. Like, it's okay.
Couple more before we go because we're running pretty long.
I want to hear about this Wayfair cabinet.
So the Wayfair cabinet thing is, of course, it boils down to pedophilia. Always boils down to child sex trafficking and pedophilia. So pedophilia is a go-to when it comes to conspiracy.
Is this Johnny Gosh?
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But it's apparently on Wayfair, there were these furniture items.
Yes.
And if you customized it in such a way, it went from a couple hundred to tens of thousands. And Wayfair chalked it up as there was a glitch in the system or whatever. Apparently, some of these items had names attached to them, like John or something. And these people within the conspiracy or bought into conspiracy would think, oh, that's code to have a child shipped in that to you.
Oh, wow.
And you can... abuse the child.
Literal cabinets.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is not Johnny Gosh. You can look at that up another time.
Sure,
That's a child that disappeared in the 80s.
There hasn't been any legitimate confirmation for this. There hasn't been any sense of, evidence.
So this is really new.
It's fairly new,
okay.
Yeah. Maybe a month or two old.
Oh, that's why I haven't heard of it. Okay.
But those that, again, this is not dissimilar to other conspiracy theories. They'll say, well, lack of evidence isn't evidence, right? And so, again, there's nothing you can do. You can't
prove a
say
negative.
There's no evidence for this, so they'll say, well, that doesn't mean it's not true.
Right.
Okay, fine. There's no evidence that there is Michael from Halloween is outside your house ready to stab you right now. That he must be there.
Right.
It's the same sort of thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have 5G is another one. 5G is causing coronavirus. For me, that's an easy, elimination, just because there are a lot of places in the world, lots of them. In fact, most of them don't have 5G towers and
still have coronavirus. Yeah. Yep. And we got to talk about Mandela effect.
Sure.
Because that's one that
is that a conspiracy theory?
I don't know. So I feel like it's something we've always thought of as just like a phenomenon. But I when I was researching conspiracy theories and looking up popular ones, that one came up a couple of times.
I guess it's how far you want to go with that.
Right. If you think it's purposeful, if you think there's some puppet master who's changing things. So the Mandela effect is, if you haven't heard of it, it started with...
Hey, let me give an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
So remember when... the Sinbad movie with the genie, what was it called? Shazam. Yeah, never happened.
Right.
Blew people's fucking mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or
there was
when
Kazam.
Kazam
right?
with Shaq.
Yeah.
Or when in the beginning when you used to watch Disney movies that were in the soft shell and you put it in your VCR and you start the movie and Tinkerbell would come, the blue Disney logo, and Tinkerbell would chime the top of it and it would say, well, that never happened either.
Right. Yeah, and the Berenstain Bears is another one.
Yep.
The spelling. So there are things, the idea is that there are things that the vast majority or a lot of people remember being one way in history. And now when you look back at it's like, that's not how it happened. That's
we should
not how
do
it's
an
spelled.
entire episode.
We should break them all down because it's really kind of a mind fuck when you think like the Sinbad Shazam thing blew my mind. I remember that movie.
But I remember when I told you about Tinkerbell, you're like, yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that never happened. You're like,
so
no,
anyway,
no.
I know. I was really upset about that one too. We can't bury the lead. We should do a whole episode about that. But yeah, so that's the Mandela effect. So I guess it is. I just always thought of it as a phenomenon of there must be some reason why these collective numbers of people.
It's called the Mandela effect because apparently people believe Nelson Mandela died in the 80s.
Right. And then
while imprisoned.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of people remember that. And then that's not what
happened.
happened.
No.
So,
or Tiananmen Square, someone got ran over. Yep. Again, I don't want to.
It's this phenomenon of many people misremembering events in history, and I guess that could be a conspiracy if you think there's someone behind the curtain who's like changing these things, or like that's when people look at copies of the Berenstain Bears. Like, do they think that someone went back and like got rid of all of the ones that were spelled the way we remember?
Can't have it this way,
and replaced it with books with a different spelling? Like that's the only way it could be a conspiracy.
This will get them.
Yeah. So I don't really know. That one confused me too as to why that was considered a conspiracy theory. We should look into it more before we do that whole episode on different Mandela effects.
How do you control people's mind? Change the
kids' book. Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yep.
Any other ones you want to touch on?
No, I think that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, again, I don't want to pick on people too much. And I know when we blur the lines or we start talking about those that are educated and those that are not, it becomes a very, camp war kind of thing. We're drawing lines. I don't mean any insult. I just, if you're someone that works in a trade, right? I work in the plumbing industry, and imagine if you were a very skilled plumber, right? And I have no experience in plumbing. And I say, no, you're doing it wrong. And in fact, you don't know what you're talking about. In fact, it should be done this way. You would take offense to that. You would take large offense to that. So why is it that any other profession doesn't qualify for this? Why is it that when we talk about medical professionals that have been doing this in their entire lives, why not just trust them? Why not just take their word for it? And again, if at the very least, at the worst case scenario, quote unquote, wearing a mask is ineffective, who fucking cares?
Right. If we find out in 10 years that we all wore masks for no reason, okay.
I know.
What did you
I'm
lose?
not going to, say names. I do know someone that does believe that this is a hoax. This whole thing is an election scheme. But he has said, I wear mask out of the comfort of other people.
Right. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning. That
I don't give a fuck why you wear your mask.
Right.
Just wear your mask.
Exactly. It's yes. Yeah. And I've heard that sentiment too, that after the election, it's just going to magically disappear. And I just am.
But then I say to them, okay, what happens when it doesn't?
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah. So what is going to be your reasoning, and what is going to be your thought on this whole thing when after if in a year we're still dealing with this? What, like,
yeah, I don't know.
Are you going to change your tune? Are you going to admit that maybe you were misinformed, or you know?
Never.
That's what I mean.
Never.
Like, people need to learn to admit it and move on.
Mask it or casket. Said it once before, I'll say it again. That's the title of this episode, Mask it or Casket. So, anyways, that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening if you've gotten this far. If you have any other conspiracy theories that you want to throw our way, we can certainly talk about them later down the line. I would love to, but I do want to hear more. A lot of these that have been given to us, we didn't really have time to research because there were so many, and I very hard pressed to get really deep in the woods of this because it will fuck with me for a little bit. But specifically when it comes to mask wearing, if you haven't given us your input as to why you do or do not wear a mask, if you want to share that on the Facebook page, please do, especially if you don't wear a mask. We really want to hear from you.
Yeah, I feel like we're basing a lot of this on what we've seen on social media and by people we don't know, and like those Karen videos that go viral and that sort of thing.
But we change my mind.
Yeah, we want to hear from people that we know that we can actually have a conversation and try to understand.
Let's hear it. That being said, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/whileshe'snapping. That is predominantly, we are, old millennials, so we still do the Facebook thing. Yeah. That is predominantly where we run shit in terms of social media. Secondary source would be Instagram at whileshe'snapping. We tend to post a lot. In fact, we posted one for Blue Jays opening day if you want to see a picture from our wedding. We're on Twitter at she'snappingpod. You can email us at whileshe'snapping@gmail.com. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast fix from. We're on Pandora now.
Yeah.
You can hit us up on Pandora, the YouTubes, and of course, visit our website, whileshe'snapping.com. All the episodes are there. Not sure what we're going to talk about next week. Maybe it will be the Mandela effect. We can make this fun. Maybe.
Maybe. I was thinking we should talk about, with sports being back.
Oh, yeah.
We should talk about how the different sports teams are approaching things like Black Lives Matter and and even how they've adjusted to COVID and sort of. I just think we should talk about
that's my field.
Sports coming back. Yeah.
Cross-pollination. All right. Well, until next week, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Bye.